Hey guys, it's Danny, and today I'm gonna be reviewing the M1 MacBook Air that my dad has had for about 2 months now, using it for his work, for his classes. And today I'm gonna be reviewing it and seeing just how good this M1 MacBook Air is. This model has 16 gigs of RAM. I'm gonna be testing all about the keyboard, the performance, the speed, the battery life, all of that actually matters. So without further ado, let's get right into the new, M1 MacBook review. Okay, I have this kind of tilted like this just because there might be glare depending on parts of the video, there could be shade. Hopefully like clouds can come and play a part, but I'm gonna try to just keep the MacBook Air like this when there is shade, and when there's sun I'm just gonna keep it like this. Just know that this is the MacBook Air because it has this wedge-shaped design. This is the M1. Is it the 16GB of RAM model? I'm gonna always try to keep it a little bit open so you guys can see it, but I'm just gonna keep it just generally like this. Let's start off with the design, because this design is actually pretty cool. This is the silver M1's 8-core GPU, 8-core CPU, 16GB of RAM, a silver MacBook Air. And it's actually kind of like this wedge-shaped design. It was a lot thinner than I was expecting, a little bit too thin actually, because I thought it was going to be like a MacBook Pro. We had the 2019 version. My dad had it for his work. He teaches psychology in his classes, so he needed it for doing classes, preparing his studies. He does everything online, so he had this one, and he had a MacBook Pro. So I thought it was going to be a little bit thicker, or about the same thickness, but actually no. It actually just performed pretty cool. And it does actually feel kind of thin. It's a little bit too thin, to be honest, because you think it might snap, but no, this thing's actually really sturdy. It does feel a little bit lighter in the hand. You got a headphone jack, you got 2 USB-C ports, Thunderbolt 4, I think, and that I've been using a lot for taking photos with my camera that I have over here. And I have this just so we can export my files and all that stuff. So it's actually pretty cool. The design, it's a little bit wedge-shaped design. It's very good. It's actually a little bit easier to type on, since when you're typing like this, when you have it like this, it feels way better because their palms are literally resting on the keyboard, not being like this. They're just like this. So it's way better to type on. That's just way better. So the design is definitely a pretty cool upgrade. Now for the display. MacBooks have always had a pretty good displays since the Retina HD came out on the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, and this one is no exception. It's an LCD panel. It's in a sad, it's an LCD, but there's rumors of the M1X coming out of the MacBooks having a mini LED panel. Hopefully that's true. This panel is 2560 times 1600, which is roughly around a little bit higher than 1440p at 264 pixels or 274 pixels per inch, I'm pretty sure. And it's actually pretty cool. Now that I have seen the 2019 MacBook Pro, I can't say that this display is roughly about the same. When you zoom in, when you like pixel peep a lot, it definitely maintains its sharpness. It's nice and sharp, clear. The brightness, it's about 400 nits, kind of weak. I like the 500 nits. I actually think the Pro model should have 600 because that's a little bit better, and the Air should have 500 nits. Kind of sad it doesn't have 500 because as you can see, it's kind of dim a little bit, depending if there's shade. Right now there's shade, that's really good, but might be able to see it, but sad it's not that bright. Indoors it's plenty fine. Right now it's actually really bright for the camera. You might not be able to see it. It was kind of a shame. But overall, I think it's a pretty good display. Really sharp. When pixel peep, you can definitely see the pixels, but it's not as drastic as, like, let's say 2015 MacBook Air, or just like an earlier MacBook models that I've reviewed. By the way, I reviewed a 2015 MacBook Air from Intel, and it was okay. Not the best, but not the worst. But this one, I can definitely tell it's way better quality. Just overall way better display. This has the P3 color gamut, which means it can display more colors. These are always very good for video editors and photographers for editing video. P3 means how much colors it can show, which is pretty cool. It's on the display side, it is a really solid display, and I definitely love this display. Just wish it was a little bit brighter. That's my only complaint. Now for keyboard reliability, since 2016, Apple moved from a scissor switch keyboard to a butterfly switch keyboard, which was a little bit worse. It was thinner, it looked cooler, yes, but it didn't have that much travel, and it was kind of flat, and it wasn't that clicky. It didn't sound like that. It sounded more flat and just overall just kind of worse. But now with this new and updated Magic Keyboard that has shipped with the 2020 Intel MacBook Air and 2020 MacBook Pros, Apple has changed all of that, and this one feels incredibly better. I had tested the butterfly keyboard from the 2019 MacBook Pro. I reviewed that Mac. You can go watch it on my channel. But it was kind of bad at the keyboard. It did an okay job. I got used to it, but it just didn't feel that good. With this one, it took me time adjusting, since I had to go back to the mechanical keyboard or scissor switch keyboard. It was kind of annoying to adjust because I had grown accustomed to that one, the more flat one. I had to get used to the clickiness. But overall, I think it's pretty cool. And Apple has like the fingerprint coding, so that it really shows fingerprints, which is pretty cool. After having experience using this keyboard, this has been pretty good. It clicks a lot. It feels really nice and clicky, and overall it just feels way better. There's a real keyboard travel now. It's in 1mm, and overall it just feels way better. This feels way better keyboard, and you have some pretty cool buttons here. It gives you some shortcuts, and it's pretty cool. And of course, you can't forget about the Touch ID sensor right here, where you can just go like this, unlock with Touch ID, and boom, there you go. I wish they kind of add Face ID, but that'll be pretty much for the pros. That'd be pretty cool, but it's probably never gonna happen. But that'd be actually pretty cool if they did. But overall, this Mac on the keyboard side is very good. And also, just really quickly, the speakers are also really great. I find these a little bit more deeper and more rich sounding than the Pros, and also a little bit louder. But overall, the speakers on this Mac are great, just in case you were wondering. Now for the performance, where this M1 chip definitely outperforms everybody by a lot. Now, when the M1 chip was announced, this was a total game changer. In Apple's own words, it was better, it was faster, they kept showing numbers like 5x, 2.5x, 10 times better, lower wattage for like this Max, and this has been true. This has been a very good Mac for performance. Definitely yes. My dad has used the Intel MacBook Pros, and when he got this MacBook M1 MacBook Air, I asked him, because I'm an interior, he said he didn't think it was going to be faster, but now having trustful heavy multi-gigabit files that he uses, like 44 gigabytes, he uses 50 gigabytes of files, he definitely says this one is faster, and he has the exact same Wi-Fi network, so he says this one is faster. He says the M1 is way better, and actually I can testify that, because this is a way better M1 than the Intel. Just for reference, I had edited some 12-minute videos on the Intel MacBook Pro. It took about 30 minutes to export a 12-minute 4K iPhone SE clip. Kind of annoying. With this one, I exported 10-minute, and it was off, and it finished in 5 minutes and iMovie. So that's pretty good. Now I realize this isn't really DSLR level footage. It is just iPhone footage. But if you see MaxTech's comparison, they did R5. They tested Red ROM and other cameras, and this and one MacBook Air and MacBook Pro exported Canon R5 footage. That is one of the hardest footage to edit in about I think it was like 2 minutes and 3 seconds. You can go check the video. The channel is called MaxTech, and it's a really good channel. So I think this MacBook performance is really great. And this version has the 8-core CPU, the 8-core GPU, which makes it a very good computer. And when editing, this does not overheat. So I constantly hated the MacBook Pro's fans on the other Mac constantly going off, and that huge sound that annoying sound was just really annoying and distracting. With this one, this is now gone. It feels way better. If anything gets a little bit warm around the keyboard, around the center area, but other than that, it's just way better. It doesn't get that hot, and it's just way better, and it has 0 fans, so it's just thermal heating right here, and it's just way better. Even when photo editing, I edited an hour of photos just because we were like doing a photo shoot for a house and other stuff, and I had to take my camera. I edited them, and then for an hour, and this part got hot. I didn't hear any fans. It's just perfectly cool machine, except around the center of the keyboard, most like this area, because that's where like the most thermals and heating things are. But it's just really good. And this is a 16GB model. I would recommend if you're doing anything like video editing, heavy files, photo editing, graphics design, anything heavy and intensive, get the 16GB model, because you don't want apps to unexpectedly quit on you or crash because you don't have enough RAM. That is really sad and annoying to have to deal with that. So if you're doing anything like I say, graphics design, video editing, photo editing, or just anything else in general, have the 16GB model. It's gonna be way better. The extra RAM is a total game changer, and since this RAM is now unified, it's way better RAM. It's just way better. Feels way faster. Overall, this performance machine is just very good. I love it a lot. And overall, I can't wait what Apple does with the M1X chip. Now, how about the battery life? Well, this Mac has a great battery life. Apple quoted this at 15 hours of wireless web browsing and 17 hours of video playback. And it's up to. It's not always 17 hours or 15 hours. And my dad he uses his Mac for his entire work. He has class that he has to do. He has to show them. He has to present photos, images, videos. He teaches them. He does psychology, so he uses his Mac a lot, for almost all the time. But he used it for about 6 hours a day for his classes to his students. And this Mac ended the day with 54%. I charged it up to 100%. Told him this is an experiment. Do not please start it during the day. I want to see how long this lasts. And it ended with the day with 54%. The next day, he had 7 hours of screen on time, and he finished the day with 5% remaining. And then I told him, you can charge it. And that means I got a 13-hour battery life, which is pretty good, and that's up to Apple standards. And this battery life has been amazing. It is way better than the Intel MacBook Pro that will only last about 7 hours, which is kind of bad. This one, with the exact same battery, I think even less, has a better overall battery life, and it's just way better. That's the M1 optimization. That's just like there. It's a way better chip, just overall extremely good. So battery life on this is very good. This is a truly 2-day MacBook Pro if you don't push it that hard. If you do beta testing for like 2 hours straight, of course you're gonna kill it. In that case, just charge it in. But if you're doing like web browsing, videos, you're a college student, overall this Mac is really this is truly 2-day Mac. So overall the battery life is a solid A+. How is the Touch ID? Touch ID is still really good. Of course, it's always good, very good. You're not gonna like this, boom, and there you go. Hopefully you can see the Mac. Hopefully that there is shade now. Hopefully you can see the Mac. I'm hoping you can with the display. Now, anyways, how is the experience without the touch bar? Because I loved the touch bar on the 2019 MacBook Pro. I kind of missed it. It was just so good. It was an OLED display that you could do stuff that ran around here on the top function keys. It had lots of shortcuts for editing. It was just so much. I didn't miss it. Well, not as much as I would think I would miss it, but I wish it was there. The reason I like the touch bar is because it has shortcuts. When editing, you can use display, you can do other stuff. You can lower the volume. It's just way better. It felt kind of more futuristic with the touch bar. Sadly, this is gone, but there's new function keys which are pretty good and that do the job well. I kind of miss the touch bar, not that much, but it's actually pretty good with the MacBook Air. It is overall just a pretty good keyboard, and overall I don't really miss the touch bar that much. Now, how is the webcam quality? This has been Apple's biggest weakness in their MacBooks, apart in the M1s. That is not having a good webcam quality. And with the iMac, they got its 1080p. Finally, it's about time. Now with the Macs, they have 720p improved image signal processor, which does make a big difference over the 720p and Intel MacBook Pros. But how good is the quality? Well, it's got a 720p image, still it's not 1080p. But here's an image with the microphones of this MacBook Pro. Just see how good this thing is. So here it is. This is the camera quality of the M1 MacBooks, and this is the microphones. This is the quality. It looks okay. You can still see kind of grainy over there. My face is kind of thin. The colors aren't that accurate. The black, it's a little bit more black, and it's a little bit more contrast. But overall, it does a pretty good job. This is the mic straight of the MacBook Air. I wouldn't say it's studio quality, but it does the job. So yeah, this is the test. See how you tell me how you like it. So as you saw, the webcam quality was okay. It needed a little bit more contrast, a little bit more saturation. The microphones were pretty good, and overall, this camera does a pretty good job when just doing FaceTime or Zoom. That is actually pretty necessary nowadays. So overall, the webcam is a solid B, not B+. That would be 1080p. But overall, this camera is okay for a laptop. Now for the overheating problems that the Intel MacBook Pros have been very famous about. This Mac has no overheating. I haven't experienced any unexpected crashes with it, even editing an iMovie or just doing photo editing. It does get a little bit warm in the keyboard, as I said before, but it's not that big. It's not the end of the world. It's pretty good. I had one of our photos, as I said before, it got a little bit warm, but overall, this overheating problem has been fixed because the Intel MacBook Pro fans would scream like crazy, and this one is definitely fanless. You can't see a single fan or a single fan output, and this thing is just overall very good. And it doesn't get heat even for graphics design on just editing editing videos or photos. This thing does a great job for that. But overall, I can see the problem is fixed. Now for video editing. Now, in case you're a video editor, this Mac is definitely great at it. I edited a 10-minute 4K clip of the iPhone XR, and it exported in 5 minutes and 30 seconds, which is pretty good. Now, in case I know this is smartphone footage, not DSLR or mirrorless type level, or even Canon R5 levels type stuff. But as I said before, you can watch the video for YouTubers that from MacSec that tell you how good this Mac is for editing R5 footage. This is pretty good for editors. It's definitely a good pickup. You just use like entry level cameras, like let's say a Canon M50 Mark II. This would be perfect at it. For red files, it's not that good. Probably get an Intel Mac or like an Intel iMac or Mac Pro. But overall, this thing just is pretty good. Now for my conclusion, how good is this Mac? Overall, the M1 is pretty good. Sure, most of the apps have optimized to it because it's not an Intel. I think it's X80 64-bit architecture, so it needs to get updated. But overall, most apps on my dad uses have been updated to M1, and we've seen some massive powers over it. Graphics is pretty good. Display excellent. Battery life A+, and performance just really good. So overall, this Mac does a pretty good job. Now, a little bit complaints. I wish they had a little bit more USB-C ports and maybe even an SD card slot, because I don't like having a dongle. Kind of annoying. It has a headphone jack, which is pretty good. The design is pretty good. I wish you could fit in an SD card slot on this side, which it can definitely get fitted in. But overall, it does a pretty good job overall. So that's about it, guys. Thanks for watching my video. Okay, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.